allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jenny, would you take the roll? Austriaco? Here. Kessler? Here. Collins? Here. Boyle? Here. Lee? Sullivan? Oh, here. Okay, we're going to start with 207's class. It's our favorite part of the meeting. This month we have 4, because we actually have 2 award recipients from Maine South. So we're going to go ahead and start with Maine South, and this is for technology.
And not because we're doing 2 this month for South, but actually South last week couldn't make it last month, so we're making it up.
All right, South Representative for Leadership and Technology, Mr. Ryan Prendergast. So Ryan, will you come up here? So Ryan just returned from Washington, D.C., where he's a member of our nationally ranked C team, Unit 6. Knows a lot about the Federalist Papers, trust me. So not only in technology, but pretty much every facet at Maine South, Ryan is a leader. He is in literally the hardest classes we have to offer here in District 207, AP everything, so AP Euro, Stat, APUSH, AP Calc BC, AP Language and Composition, AP Physics 1, AP English, AP Physics C, AP Chem, AP German, multivariable calculus and differential equations. He also took the AP Computer Science A exam without taking the class and got a 5 on the test. His GPA is currently 4.84. So Ryan has done many things at the school as well. He's ran cross country, member of the track team, member of the math team that qualified for state, president of NHS, president of the Computer Science Club. He organized Hackbridge, which is a 24-hour hackathon held at Maine South for all District 207 students. He designed a website called Talklot, and that's where students could rent out spaces when they weren't in the school. He was also in the Supercomputing International Competition called Student Cluster Competition that was held in Denver, Colorado. He was on a team with 4 other undergraduates and 2 high school students where they took 6th place in the world, second from all the teams in the Americas. He also made the Maine Madness website, which helped raise money for our school-wide fundraiser, which just garnered over $60,000, which was a record for us at South. So let me read some of Ryan's accomplishments from his teachers. This is from Amy Krukowski, one of Ryan's English teachers. With over 30 years of teaching experience, I have to say that Ryan will be one of the most memorable students I have ever had. He stands out for a couple of reasons. The main one is his love of learning. He's incredibly curious and not afraid to share it. He shares with his classmates his multitude of questions about a text, his philosophical connections, his curiosity about the world around him, and even his style of annotating. He memorized Hamlet's To Be or Not to Be in a couple of days, just for kicks. The second way Ryan stands out is his humility. You would never know how brilliant he is based on his demeanor and interactions with others. While he stands above many of his peers, in my opinion, he certainly doesn't conduct himself in a way where he sees himself above them. He is kind and thoughtful. Whoever speaks to him gets his full attention. I am so lucky that he is in my class this year. His parents are really, really lucky. Mr. Jack Marino, one of Ryan's science teachers, says, I felt so fortunate to work with Ryan on a daily basis this year. His infectious curiosity, his insightful questions and comments, his incredible enthusiasm for learning and teaching science are a source of inspiration for his peers and his physics teacher. Whenever I am talking about Ryan, in the back of my mind is an awareness that I'm probably interacting with a future CEO of a successful tech company. He has the curiosity and playfulness of an 8-year-old and the poise and maturity of a 30-year-old entrepreneur. And finally, Mr. Andy Trinkle, Ryan's C-team teacher, says, I guess what stands out to me is that Ryan is just incredibly intellectually curious. Although this is awarded for technology, he is more than just someone interested in coding. He thinks so conceptually and connects arguments together so effectively that he is an extremely gifted student in the humanities too. In a world where it seems that so many want to find their specialty and begin their career path ever earlier, Ryan's approach leaves him with so many open paths. He is in many ways a Renaissance man, with a like mind for enlightenment. These may seem like strong and absurd words, but only if you've never met Ryan. Just this morning I was having a conversation with him about his approach to a complex question on identity and patriotism, and for every piece of advice I gave him on how to think, he said, yes, but what about question almost for every remark. Again, Ryan is just so endearingly curious. Next year, Ryan will be attending the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, majoring in computer science. What in particular are you hoping to study there?
Related to computer science?
Yes.
I hope to do artificial intelligence.
And then what with that do you want to do with your life?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. I think I hope to be my own boss is one thing that I really want to do.
Awesome. So I've had multiple interactions with Ryan this year, and I would concur with everything that his teacher said. He is absolutely incredible in every way. And so Ryan, who is here with you this evening?
My mom and my dad.
Awesome. Congratulations, Ryan.
That's the big problem.
All right.
Okay, we're going to move along then, so we'll stay with Mr. Collins, and we'll go to extracurricular achievements.
All right. This month's recipient from Maine South is Mr. Brandon Christopher. So in the fall, it would be pretty regular for Brandon and I to interact, seeing each other on the marching band field, and then seeing each other on Saturday as he whizzed by everybody else in cross country. He was an all-state, all-region, all-conference distance runner. His 3-mile time is the 6th best in school history. He's also selected from the entire conference as the best sportsmanship award. In the fall, it's pretty normal for Brandon to be out coaching his saxophone section as a saxophone leader, and then you'd see him right after that coaching some of the same people, but many other different types of students for cross country in his leadership there. He was also selected from the entire school to speak to our incoming freshman class. And he talked about getting involved in the school and what that can do for not only yourself as a person, but for the larger community. Probably one of the most moving speeches I think I've had a chance to witness from a student. Definitely one of the most mature. So I'm going to read some quotes here from Brandon's teachers. And again, actually let me interject. Let me read one quote from Mr. Turner, the athletic director of Maine South, who said, "Brandon has continued to grow as a person and as an athlete throughout his high school career. More importantly, he represents our school at the highest level as one of the finest students ever to attend. The best part of Brandon is that his academic performance is a direct reflection of how he is as a person in all phases of his life. Others trust him and admire how he handles adversity and his willingness to take on challenges. That was clearly noticeable with our cross-country cheering team during the 2017 IHSA state finals. Brandon was the senior leader that pushed one of our youngest runners to a third place finish, while Brandon finished 11th at the event. Brandon's competition level became greater throughout the season, which in turn made our team perform better every week." Mr. Greg Nordell, science teacher and head cross-country coach, said Brandon is a positive force even off the field. With his work at Dick Hahn's Running Store, they consistently gush about what a positive force Brandon is and how helpful he is to everybody coming into the store. He is not the only one to notice the strength. And when Brandon addressed the incoming class, we had a lot of parents, I think, come up after the fact and said, can my son or daughter introduce, can they get introduced to him because he's amazing. This is a really interesting comment. So Mr. David Hutter, our band director, said, "One of the easiest decisions I ever made in my career at Maine South was naming Brandon as a section leader of the saxophone section. This position is extremely vital to the success of the entire band. Under the superior leadership of Brandon, the saxophone section took a pinnacle shift that is now a productive, disciplined, and positive team." And here's the kicker. During parent-teacher conferences this year, multiple underclassmen parents stated how many of their sons looked up to Brandon due to his musical talents and ability to lead others. I think that's pretty awesome. I told parents that they couldn't have picked a better role model at the school. Mr. Greg Young said, "The words I would use to describe Brandon after working with him this last semester are engaging, diligent, motivated, insightful, curious, accountable, intelligent, and involved. He has been an absolute delight to have in class with his highly engaged participation, questions, and collaborative group leadership." And finally, Monica Langdon says he was a senior in a very regular sophomore class. He approaches the rigor in chemistry the same way he does in running, by working hard. He comes in often for help and goes to the Science Support Center every day. At this time, when other seniors are starting to finish the year, Brandon is sprinting to the end. I'm so proud of him. Brandon and I, again, just like Ryan, have had multiple interactions through the year. He's one of the students who, every time he sees me in the hall, he's just extremely infectious with his positive attitude. He has also the best hair at the It's too bad he didn't actually put it back into the cornrows. But Brandon, I can't imagine having met such a positive influence. I think you're an influence on all of our students, but you're also a real positive influence on me too. So I really appreciate everything you do for Maine South and everything you do for TOSEP. Congratulations. So where are you going to be headed next year?
Running cross country and studying business at the University of Dayton.
And who's here with you tonight?
My whole family, including grandpa, brother, my mom, my grandma, and my dad.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Way to keep up the late.
We're going to move along then to Maine West. Dr. Howard.
Yes, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Destiny Onisi. So I found a quote that I don't think is written for everybody, but it really, it's not written for anybody, but it's definitely written for Destiny. It says, being involved in the well-being and advancement of one's own community is the most natural thing to do, by Clarence Clemens. And I don't think it's the most natural thing for a lot of people to do, but in Destiny's case, it really is. A couple years ago, I had a freshman who told me she was going to go to Harvard, and to do that, she had a blurb from Harvard's entrance booklet on what to do to get into Harvard, and it said you had to be in at least 14 clubs or activities while you were in high school. So this student, not Destiny, clicked off all her 14 things and then went on to whatever Harvard said next. And I'm using that as an example because it's exactly the opposite of what Destiny has done. She's tried a whole lot of things while she was in high school, and she has stuck to those things that make a difference or where she has a voice. And what's really powerful is the way she has chosen to use her voice over these past 4 years. So not only is she a superstar in the classroom, she's got a 4.4 GPA, and she's way at the top of her class, but in the meantime, she has done 15 different activities at Maine West that all have made a difference. And I want to crank off the list for you so that you can hear the difference in just doing things as opposed to deliberately choosing things. So she's been on class council, she's been on coach tutoring, girls track and field, Mu Alpha Theta, which is the Math Honor Society, National Honor Society, Pi Sigma Pi, Spanish National Honor Society, speech team, student council, Tri-M, Voice for the Nameless, V-Show, Warrior Pride, Westerner, and Winter Warriors. And in choosing all of those different activities, she's chosen those where she can communicate her passion and where she can communicate the dedication that other students should have in what they're doing. And our NHS sponsor who's here tonight, Ms. Wisdom, really wrote a nice blurb about Destiny, and I'd like to read it. She said, I can't say enough about Destiny. She is breathtakingly competent in giving her focus on leadership and service. Destiny came to me with the idea of reaching out to our elementary schools and designed an entire 3-month program for them. I observed her lead the first group of ELL elementary students in a poetry writing exercise. And while the students were shy at first, Destiny's easygoing manner and encouragement soon put them at ease. The hour flew by, and at the end she had smiles and hugs from every student. Then she offered detailed, positive feedback to every facilitator who was helping. After hearing about the success of the first session, at least 2 other NHS members have made time in their schedules to help out at the next poetry session. And it was a remarkable success over at Plainfield. Destiny is confident yet compassionate. After a new NHS member made a poor choice, Destiny addressed it with the sponsor and then with the student in a way that left the sponsor inspired and the student empowered. She stands for the integrity and purpose of the National Honor Society in a way that few officers before her in Ms. Wisdom's tenure have done. As our Vice President, Destiny is a leader who does exactly what needs to be done at the moment it's needed. She has excellent instincts about what individuals and the group needs, and she offers her opinions and ideas with an openness to listen and reconsider. She considers herself with what's right, not with what is popular. And I've seen the same thing at Maine West in every aspect that Destiny has touched. She certainly has a talent for writing and speaking, and her speech at the National Honor Society induction, I wanted to stand up and cheer. It was so fantastic. And she also, she was speaking about gun violence, and every student who was there stopped what they were doing when Destiny started to talk and listened to every word that she had to say. And it wasn't the same for other speakers who were speaking that day. So Destiny has that talent and can get others to listen. She uses her voice in a very powerful and intriguing way. She's definitely made a difference at Maine West, and we're very proud to recognize her as one of 207's best in the area of extracurricular activities and for making a difference. So tell us who's here with you, and then tell us what your plans are next year.
My mom and my little siblings are here with me, and I'm planning on attending Loyola University to study political science, but be on track to be a pre-med student.
Moving on to Maine East. Russell?
Hi, everybody. I am extremely pleased and proud to introduce to you Olga Gumas. So, Olga and I go back about 3 years when she was recommended, as I'm talking to various members of faculty and staff, recommendations. So for our principal student leadership team, a number of ways people find their way onto the team. Some of them may already be elected or sort of vested leaders in the school. Some of them come to be highly recommended by various other people in the school, and sometimes I just kind of observe students and I think I really like what's going on there and I'd like that person to be on the team. Olga fell into the second of those categories as I sort of talked and asked one of our deans, athletic director, and there was no hesitation. He said, Olga Gumas. I'm like, okay. So came in as sophomores, and as sophomores on that team, tends to be, not surprisingly, the seniors have been there, many of them for 3 years, some 2, some 1. But Olga was kind of quiet. But the thing about Olga is she always was very, very focused, very even, and was not afraid to share an opinion, but would always do so sort of respectfully in terms of her age and stage. And I found that at the end of her sophomore year and into her junior year, she really would be the one who could just say, all right, let's look at this in a very down-to-earth sort of way. So just has got a maturity, kind of an old soul aspect to her in terms of the way she looks at things. She's very even. She can really look at issues from many different directions. Like many students here tonight, she's been in a lot of AP and accelerated stuff, getting ready for the first AP on Wednesday, and then she's got the heavy hitters next week, but been very, very successful, extremely respectable weighted GPA as well. What I'm going to do is just read a list of some of the things that she does at Maine East, and each one of these bullets could have a lengthy story about the things that I know and a lot of things I don't know what she's done. Fortunately, I will not go into that story, but I would hope to share the list with you. So over time, she's been involved in Maine East Cares, which is our charity club. She's one of our assembly MCs, which basically means she and 1 or 2 of her peers can sort of hold the entire Maine East student body and staff in the field house in the palm of her hand. When she speaks, people listen. She's been a member of our R-Code advisory board, and she's always a great model, being respectful, responsible, ready each and every day. She's been in a number of our R-Code videotape lessons, so everybody at Maine East knows Olga. She's a PE leader. She's been a member of student council. She's a member of the Bake for Change Club. She's a member of the principal student leadership team, where she's one of the co-presidents this year. Member of National Honor Society, earned high honor roll each year at Maine East. Also earned IHSA Scholastic Achievement Award. And she's been a 4-year member of the basketball program, and I'll go into a little more depth on that in a moment. Again, when I put some things out indicating Olga was our pick for this month, I got numerous responses from teachers who have had her over 4 years period of time. Just some real quick little snippets. Olga's a passionate, driven young lady who never brings less than her best on a daily basis. What makes her special, though, is her charismatic spirit. People are drawn to her positive energy and can-do attitude. By Judy Tyler, one of our AP Bio teachers, and Gifted Lyceum coordinator. Another said, in any one-to-one dealings I've had with her, I'm struck by her maturity and optimism. Maria Garvey, one of our AP English teachers. Drew Schneider, who teaches CTE, had her in finance and investment. Said she consistently found ways to challenge herself and her academic teammates to push their learning to the next level. As a teacher of finance and investing, I can tell you that I learned new things from her research and presentations. Sort of at greater depth, Carol Kunuziak was, not this year, but for the last 2 years, has been our varsity basketball coach, girls basketball. So Carol has known and seen Olga grow and develop over a period of time. Since I've known Olga for 4 years and had the pleasure to coach her for 3 of those 4. Olga is by far one of the most dedicated, unselfish, caring teammates I've coached. There are 2 instances within Olga's time here that her selfishness shone through. The first one occurred during her freshman year. Olga was on the bubble between freshman and varsity. You know, if I pulled her up, she would not get much playing time, but if I left her down at freshman, she wouldn't progress the way that she should. I talked to Olga and her mom and proposed practicing with varsity playing freshman. Expecting disappointment from Olga, however, she and her mom smiled and both said, "Coach, you're on board with whatever you think is best for the program." The second instance of Olga's character came her junior year. After tearing her ACL and having to miss her junior basketball season, Olga never missed a beat. She was there at summer camp, at every fall game, at every practice, at every game, always encouraging her teammates. She was always being supportive and positive for them when I know deep down she was struggling and sad about missing her junior year. Olga worked tirelessly to rehab and get back to playing her senior year. She was instrumental in leading the team through the transition to the new head coach. She kept her positivity and work ethic even when the wins weren't coming. Olga epitomizes everything an athlete should be. She may not have received all the accolades and awards, but the value Olga brings to the team is measured in heart, not in trophies. I'm happy and proud to be able to say Coach Olga Gumas. From my own perspective, having known and worked with her, the thing I really appreciate about Olga is she just gets it done. If there's, it's a matter of, we have a meeting coming up, where are we? The agenda's done, she's worked with the other officers, if we have committee reports, she's touched base. It's time, we kind of socialize, but until we get critical mass of people coming in for a 7 o'clock or 7:30 meeting, she calls it to attention, she gets going, it works flawlessly, and I have no doubt whatever she pursues, she's going to take that very same sense of organization, that sense of heart, that very quiet charisma, and she is just going to knock it out of the park. So who knows, one day I might be working for her. Congratulations. Who's here with you tonight?
My mom, my brother, and my dad.
And what are your plans next year?
I plan to go to St. Louis University to study nutrition and hopes to become a dietitian.
Congratulations to all of our 207 class. We wish you all the best as you move on. We'll miss you, that's for sure. At this time, this is an opportunity for the students and their family and their principals to go and have a photo taken. It's also your opportunity to the meeting. I'd like to do so.
We continue to do community engagement. Those meetings are going well. We have a lot of questions, but I feel like Mary Fuller is doing a really good job of answering a lot of those questions. And every once in a while I'll chip in one too. But we've had pretty decent crowds as this thing goes, and we'll continue to do that work faithfully.
This is a meetings.
For the engagement for the
Proposed building. Okay, anything else? Updates from board members? I will start just by saying, it's Teacher Appreciation Week. Everybody should think about their favorite teachers and their children's favorite teachers. And thank you to all the teachers, and we'll do it for everyone. Any other updates from board members?
I was at the school-based health center meeting today, and Mike kind of used that a lot. Great engagement there, and what the board might not know, but I thought it's important to share, and then they've done this for years, is a group, there's a club now, school-based health center club, students, it's mostly ladies, but we're hoping to increase the less students out. Students, and they go to Springfield, but it was a much more purposeful trip this time for Reader, where they had very engaged meetings, and there was a video made from it. And it's something almost worthwhile to share here because it took it to the next level.
Were they talking about having a school-based?
Talking about it, and there was a kind of coalition of other school-based health center and kind of how to do funding and
Right.
different. So it was very impressive amongst all the other incredibly impressive things that the school-based health center does. But that was one highlight that I thought was worth sharing.
Thank you for going to that.
And you know, on that note, I think our school-based health center is one of the longest running, earliest in the state, probably the country for that matter, and certainly the success stories there are really, really remarkable. Jen's got something too.
I have two quick. Did we share our National School Board Conference? We already did that. Yes, no?
We did talk about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Second, another delightful news. Historically, in our District 47, we did an MOU with the international school in South Korea last year. And then they will be coming to Chicago. First time in the United States visit. We have a total of 18 students and 2 teachers leaders will be coming into visiting Main Township on July 19. And then stay there for 3 days, and then returning back to Kentucky and Washington D.C. and New York, and probably fly back to Korea. He will be their summer vacation as well, and I think this will be a delightful opportunity for our Main Township district as well as South Korea students to building a global diversity, cultural, educational relationships. So they're very excited to come and visit Chicago, and at the same time, it will be a great opportunity for us at the Main district we can do some possibly networking and school tours and many other things. So we are closely working with the superintendent and then other members of the school district for partnership on this. So when time comes, we'll fill you in more details. But again, I communicated with them a couple of days ago, and they're very excited and they're very appreciative for hospitality.
Thank you, Jim. Anything else from board members? Okay. All right. Buildings and grounds update. Lily?
On April 16th, we did have a building and ground committee meetings. All the members were present. We did have 3 discussions. Number 1 is asbestos abatement. So 6 bids were received and are in the process of scope review. The low Korean bidder is Nationwide Environmental with a combined bid of $160,055. Came in under budget. Asbestos abatement work is required for the cafeteria renovations at each of the schools. The project will begin in early June. And the second discussion we had was cafeteria furniture bids. 3 bids were received. 1 bid included an alternate which based on specs was not acceptable, and 2 types of tables were being bid, 60 inches round and high top square. The bids were split with Frank Cooney as the lowest bidder on round tables at $72,798, and Lori McDonald as the low bidder on square tables at $72,693.70. And the combined bids came in under budget also. Additionally, the tables are easy to open, close, and use. Third discussion area was chiller replacement. Due to the extent of damage to the new chiller at Main South, the chiller will be replaced with the same equipment and directly paid for by insurance. The installation will take place this coming summer. And then also June meetings, if a June building and ground building is necessary, we will be moving to June 19th and we have a drawing for the ground to be this meeting.
Thank you very much. Finance Committee update. Member Sullivan is not here. Would you like to do it?
More than half.
Okay. Mary could also.
Well, I'll set it up. You can bring it home later in the day. So the Finance Committee was held on April 16th. Board members Paula, Kessler and Sullivan were there. Boyle was not there. The meeting convened at 6:12. The first item on the agenda was the policies, specifically policy 8307, which was response to an item discussed at an earlier board meeting about local purchasing to include preference for minority or women-owned businesses. After consultation with legal counsel, reviewing policy, it is illegal to award a contract based on diversity preference or favoritism to local contractors. So the committee, as a result, the committee requested policy 8307 be pulled. We also discussed the copier contract extension. The 5-year contract with DTI is expiring. The district determined recommending a 1-year contract extension with the now the same entity, DIT, which is now named Epic Business Process Solutions. The contract will be reevaluated in a year. It's a good decision, and we're happy with the thoughtful recommendation because it realizes the savings of $133,000 due to the fact that the equipment's been put out in business. Ms. Blue also gave the quarterly investment volatility report, the third quarter budget update, and she's going to share that a little bit more in depth. The meeting was adjourned at 6:28. Thank you very much. Education Committee update. The Education Committee meeting was also held on April 16th and was convened at 6:30. All members were present. The first item of order, which was pretty fascinating and interesting, was updates to the math program. Assistant Principal for Teaching and Learning, Ms. Melissa Dudek, described the new integrated mathematics course sequences at all 3 schools beginning with the 2019-2020 school year. Members of the mathematics curriculum leadership team had met to review the current program and explore moving from a typical sequencing of Algebra 1, Geometry, and then Algebra 2 to Integrated Math 1, Integrated Math 2, Integrated Math 3 to better prepare students for capstone courses, all of which are aligned to Common Core standards. This new sequencing will provide students with more flexibility and a deeper conceptual understanding. Significantly, districts 62, 63, 64, and Neuer have been included in the conversations. And finding that K through 8 schools are also moving in this direction, and significantly there's synergy between those. I know we don't like to feeder schools or
Partner schools.
Partner schools, that's the word for our partner schools. Transition to integrated mathematics will require much collaboration, and teachers will have input in choosing curriculum resources. It was interesting too that it seemed the team had assessed and looked at other school districts that have utilized this, including Downers Grove, Lamont, and Borden. We also covered the textbooks for 2018-2019, which Assistant Superintendent Sean Mesmer had shared with us at the last meeting that the list has stayed the same, just a little more detail on the resources. In response to a question that we had before, at an earlier meeting, it was determined that 70% of the textbooks that we use are online, which is a significant, which is the direction we're going to go. And the final approval for tonight will be the textbooks will be here tonight. As we've shared at the last meeting, we again are doing an exhaustive review of the educational policies, which Sean has put a tremendous amount of effort and Ginny in recapping, comparing to press policy, making sure with press policy, making sure anything duplicative or aligning old policies that we had that are outside the press are articulated correctly. So we're doing very, very painfully, very thoroughly. So we're on this, that was session 2 or 3 sessions, but we really appreciate the work that was done there. Very important work, again, similar to what Mary Blue, Ginny and the team have done in finance. So very significant work, time-consuming work. And that was it. The meeting was adjourned at 7:44.
Madam President, just a quick correction. I was still present in absence on that day, so if we could just cross out who the members absent.
Yes. All members were present. My verbal report was correct.
It was all members were flawless, yes.
Thank you very much to all the speakers. The May meeting is the meeting at which we elect new officers. So at this time, if I could have a motion that we adjourn Cindy. Second. Austriaco? Aye. Vessler? Aye. Collins? Coyle? Aye. Lee? Aye. Owen? Aye. Okay, and now you'll need to take the roll. We're in this. Austriaco? Vessler? Collins? Coyle? Lee? Sullivan? Owen? Here. I'm going to appoint as president pro tem Jin Lee and secretary pro tem for purposes of this organization, Virginia.
All right, so for the 2018 and 2019 election for president of the Board of Education for District 7, may I have the nomination?
I nominate Carla.
Second.
Is there any second? Is there any discussion? If not, Ginny, can I have take a roll call?
Austriaco?
Aye.
Vessler? Aye. Collins? Coyle? Owen? Aye. Lee?
Aye. Congratulations.
I guess. Okay, we move along to election of the vice president of the Board of Education. Do I hear any nominations?
I move to nominate Paul Vessler as vice president.
Okay.
I will second it.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. Jenny, would you take the roll, please? Austriaco?
Aye.
Collins?
Aye.
Coyle?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Vessler?
Aye.
Owen? Aye. Okay, thank you very much. And I'm appointing as secretary, again, Virginia Edwards. I don't think we need to, do we need to vote on that? No.
She's undefeated.
We can't, we don't need to, she is.
Just reassure.
There's not any, it's just she has to be. Actually, no, we do have to vote on that. So could I have a motion for that? Okay. All right, thank you. You must take the roll on this. Lee?
Aye.
Coyle? Aye. Collins?
Aye.
Vessler?
Aye.
Austriaco?
Aye.
Owen? Aye. Thank you, Jim. It was a fabulous job. Okay, moving along to calendar of, this is the calendar for the Board of Education meetings. Do we need to vote on this? Do you know? Okay. Yeah, everybody should please, review these. I didn't see any problems. There are some adjustments from the normal date because of holidays.
Normally, I believe 2019, the National School Board Conference will be one of the same exact date fits into April 1, 2019.
Oh.
So,
You wanna
so
check
how
that?
about if we take a look at that, we'll do some research. We've got plenty of time, we can come back and amend those.
Was that April 8th on the list?
That's our, no, that's
That's
always our
our-
second,
oh,
which
yeah.
we never have done, but that's our second potential personnel meeting. We generally haven't held those, but we get them on the calendar.
Okay, so we can take a look at that. We do have something from the NSBA?
We'll check that and
Okay, moving along to monthly status of finances. Mary?
In your board packet is the March financial statement. Instead of going through March, I'm actually going to point you to the third quarter budget update, which ends the year in March, in which we then project through the rest of the fiscal year. When you take a look, we are now projecting that our budgeted deficit of $7.1 million will be reduced to a deficit of $2.3 million. There's a couple of elements to that. The first is timing. There was a $2.2 million for the boilers that was paid in fiscal 17, so that's a timing difference and allowed us to save the money in 18. And then the state in 2018 paid some late payments from 2017, but they're current on their 2018 payments, so that was another $1 million timing difference. On the revenue side, there are three variances from the budget. The one is property tax refunds are significantly higher. They're tracking more than double historical levels, so that's about an additional $1 million in property tax refunds. The state allocation for corporate personal property replacement taxes, state elected at the last minute to reallocate $300 million in corporate personal property replacement taxes to the state and not to local entities, so that cost our district about $766,000 in corporate personal property replacement taxes. And the final one, and we'll talk a little bit more about it in the investment volatility report, is at the end of the year, the district is required for auditing purposes to book a market to value adjustment. It's a paper adjustment. We never sell our investments, but because there's a rise in interest rates right now, our market value of our investment portfolio is dropping slightly, which will result in a market value adjustment of about $1 million we're projecting. On the expenditure side, there were numerous areas where we're not going to spend our full budget. The first is because of the premium holiday for medical insurance, because our claims have been tracking very favorably, we didn't pay in either the employees or the board in the month of December, and that allowed the district to save $1 million. We're not projecting to spend our contingencies, which will result in a savings of $570,000. There were several unfilled positions and the operation and maintenance, primarily the custodial vacancies, that allowed us to save $140,000. And then finally, some of our outplacement tuition for special ed should see a savings of about $600,000. So those are, it is always our attempt to do better than budget, and we should end 2018 better than budget. The investment volatility report just goes through that market value adjustment for each one of the investments that the district holds, so you can see by investment, what the term is, what the market value is, what the carrying value is. I'll entertain any questions that anybody has on either the March financial, the third quarter budget update, or the investment volatility report.
On the custodial cost, is that something that you anticipate going forward?
No, we actually, hopefully, are close to filled, are we not? We may have one custodial opening. It's just as the economy gets better, entry-level positions are harder to fill. We're finding that true with like transportation and our bus drivers, and there's just a shortage of entry-level security guards too, so the entry-level positions.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to comment in reading the report, Mary. I mean, great job. I mean, increased revenue, reduced expenses. I mean, it's actually a really good report. Great.
you. Instructional services. John?
So this report we'll be bringing to you each year. The second year we'll bring you a report on SAT. You might remember a few years ago the state mandated test for all juniors shifted from ACT to SAT, and the district opted to begin a SAT testing series so we can track student growth over time, starting with us in the 9th grade year through the end of the junior year. So what you have there is the report. An earlier conversation to point out something that is important. If you look to, as we get into page 4 of the report, you'll see that both on reading and writing, so evidence-based reading and writing, that's the acronym EBRW, and math. If you look at that, there's a static number there for the nation, and that's a benchmark score. So you won't see it fluctuate as far as sort of an average of what national scores are on that test. It's actually a benchmark standard. So what you're seeing is our numbers against that our percentages against that benchmark. If you look through that report, you can see page 2 compares performance of our college readiness benchmarks compared to the ACT, now that we're using SAT. Page 3 outlines district level performance on each assessment for the last 2 years. Page 4 outlines district level student progress on the growth targets. And then pages 5 through 10 outline the performance of each of our schools. So if you have any questions related to that, I'd be happy to take it.
Dr. Graff was very helpful, you laid out very well. Just a lot of information.
Don does an excellent job of summarizing the report.
We're trying to get everything on one page.
No, it was just like, thank you.
So Sean, just one quick question. It says here not all students in grades 9 through 11 participate. Is that pretty much standard where?
I believe we're referring to in the nation.
Yeah, in our district, we test nearly 100%,
but in our district we do.
Right, we do.
Okay.
It's not 100%. We have some students that move in or move out or are absent and don't make up. However, for the junior test, they do need to make that up to graduate. So even if you miss that window as a junior, you still need to take that test before you can graduate.
So one of the things, this was a phenomenon that we saw in ACT. We were one of the few states in the nation where everyone took the ACT. So when you're comparing state data, you're often comparing against states where only identified college-bound students are taking the test. Same thing is going to happen with SAT moving forward. So you have to be able to inference what that data means as you look to a state comparison. We were always among the best in the nation against states where everyone took the ACT. But whenever the stories would come out, it was that little fact always got buried on graph 50 in the stories. But in any event, I think the bigger thing is one that we're spending less and less time actually chasing standardized testing at all. The outcomes that matter for our students have a lot more to do with how we're preparing them for success after high school, how we're preparing them to be successful in their careers, and things like our college graduation rates are going up, and we will be tracking even other things like that, just like job placement, satisfaction, making a living, those kind of things. Those are the more important things to change.
And just one quick thing, I was talking a little bit about to Sean before the meeting about this, and I think that when you do your community reports, you do talk about some of those. I think it's important to get that information out to the community because it's very easy to look at just a test scores to measure, and it's harder to even know what the other things are to look for. So to the extent we can message that to the community, I think it's really important because I think it's a way to have a conversation with people in the community that might make more sense if they have that information. So to the extent, I think you do some of that, but if we can get that out there, the kinds of things we're looking for to ensure success.
Officially, our state support council SAT cost effective last year. And what's the status of overall students are adopting the changes from ACT to SAT, making exams
probably the biggest controversy was when we were doing the PARCC test, which families didn't necessarily feel equated to what was going to help their child be sort of accepted to college, quite frankly. So the SAT being a college entrance exam, where the ACT was, it's been a pretty seamless shift from ACT to SAT, and our board and parents are enough to support a transition year for students who were used to taking the ACT, and then last year for the first time with the SAT, we supported that and also provided the ACT test. So pretty smooth transition, and I think you're seeing higher results on the SAT for a lot of reasons, but one of which I think is important. We've been teaching Common Core for years now, and I think the SAT is a better assessment of the Common Core standard we can teach.
Because when I was in high school, of course, we all did the ACT to go to local in-state universities. But overall, our local universities are in favor of or accepting more of SAT 2 now compared to
It's pretty ubiquitous that they accept you.
and the state still continue to financially support first examination of SAT.
Yes.
Then if they want to take the second and third, it's coming from their pocket. Correct.
Do these data include students with IEPs?
It does.
Students with IEPs take the exam. There are a few who will take an alternate assessment. That includes the vast majority of our students with IEPs.
Alternate assessment being?
Students
Students who have a more profound disability
Yeah.
have the ability to take a different test.
we have a small, as does everybody, small groups.
But the majority of IEPs are
Vast
included in
majority,
here.
yeah, vast majority.
And one other thing is, you see this systemic increase between ACT and SAT. What do you account for that? How do you account for that?
I think
Well, I'm sorry, I just want to probe, when you say an increase, you mean?
Increase in scores, right?
Well, actually,
College
this
readiness.
is a
Well,
college
it's
readiness.
And I think I told you last year, part of this exposes the problems with standardized testing for no other reason than we changed to SAT. Mysteriously, 12% more of our kids are deemed college ready. It's a little bit of baloney smoke, but.
The standard is different for what it means, what score do you have to achieve to be considered college ready?
So did you find by doing it, by going through this, were there any systematic things with the test that accounted for that?
No, it's
just
just.
totally
it's a
random benchmark.
This happens across the country.
Okay.
So this is a national phenomenon. It's the difference in tests, and to me, it's one of the most telling problems with standardized tests. First of all,
I
trying to
agree
get a
that-
standardized test to determine whether or not a kid is college ready is folly. It actually is a marketing invention that ACT came up with to scare people. That's really the truth behind that. You never heard about it until then. What really is the best indicator of our kids' success in college is the fact that they're actually going to college and graduating. That's, so we know our actual success has always far exceeded what any test has ever told us. But it's particularly punishing for districts like ours that have two majority minority high schools.
And I agree with you about the randomness of standardized tests, but I was just wondering if we gained any kind of experience from kids taking it, like when we talked about switching from the ACT to SAT, there was some community concern about, how a lot of kids are taking tutors for SATs and ACTs, and is that the same level, or?
But actually the SAT, they put all their materials free online, so.
No, I know, but we talked about that, but do we know that parents are taking advantage of that?
I would say the parents who 5 years ago were worried about and hyperventilating about their kids getting high scores are still doing the very same thing and trying to attend every resource to that. To that end as well, at each of our buildings, we resource students to be able to get test prep. I hate that we do that. I wish we didn't do that. I'm looking forward to a day when we can put all that business out of, because it doesn't matter you know, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, nobody's gonna ask a kid when they go to work, oh, what was your SAT score again? You know, it illustrates, I think, a problem. We've given standardized tests too much importance in the educational system. We've done it for all the wrong reasons. The best predictor of a kid's college success is their GPA with us when they're in high school. And we ought to give that a lot more weight and standardized tests a lot less weight. The only thing standardized tests tell us with absolute certainty with large groups of students is how affluent they are. It's a direct 1.0 linear correlation. The richer a family is as you go up the line, the higher the mean ACT or SAT score. They both have the same phenomenon. So I'm not a big fan of standardized testing.
Does that answer your question? I just wanted to make sure that when you went back and, because one of the questions that our community asked us when we talked about this was, you know, this whole, are we going to be able to do the same? Do we have to have tutors for both tests
Well,
and all stuff? And
apparently,
I just want to make sure that we've addressed
and
it.
here's what you can say, we're better. 12% more of our kids are college ready. We're better. In 1 year. Try getting a 12% increase in anything in 1 year. We got 12% better. I think that's remarkable.
Thank you, Sean.
Okay. Monthly update on FOIA requests.
We had 2, we responded to both of them.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Board of Education policies and procedures. This is the first reading. Sean? Is this you?
So the first
Oh, sorry.
one.
Okay, sorry.
We're not there yet.
Yep. This is the finance. This is the finance.
8306, we're just renumbering it to 4:61 to format into our new numbering system for, as we move to the numbering system for the Illinois Association of School Boards press policy. And then as indicated earlier, policy 8307, local purchasing, we are recommending that for deletion. These are first readings, so if there's any questions, I'll answer them now, or you can get them to me anytime in the next month.
Okay. There's no comments on that. Can I have a motion on item consent agenda, item 10A through F? Second? Okay. Ginny, would you take the roll on the consent agenda?
Austriaco?
Aye.
Bessler? Collins?
Aye.
Coyle? Lee? Owen?
Aye. Okay, here we go. Can I have a motion on item 11, policies and procedures, second reading?
Second.
Okay. Mary?
So we are recommending a host of policies for deletion, as in February, we adopted several policies from the press and tweaked some of them. Bless you. We've indicated next to each policy where that policy is now covered in our new policies. So what we're finding is that one press policy covers like 5 or 6 of ours. Bless you. So after you adopt the press, we're going back through and cleaning up all the other policies that don't need to be included.
Which is nice because it makes our policy manual a lot less intimidating.
Yes.
Right, that's the goal.
And you're at to change 6 when one watching.
Right, right. So this is a lot of cleanup going on.
A lot of cleanup going on.
But you need to do it. It's a process
Yes.
to go through. It should make everything easier going forward. Okay? Any questions or comments? Ginny, would you take the roll?
Coyle? Bessler? Lee? Collins? Austriaco? Owen?
Aye. Have a motion on item 12, summer curriculum project.
So moved.
Thank you. Now, Sean.
So these are our summer curriculum projects. We bring these each year. If you look at the second page, it kind of gives you a breakdown of funding streams for those projects. Overall, we're actually down a little bit this year from last year on spending related to that. What that means is that depending upon the funding, some of those roll each year, so it gives us an ability to repurpose those monies towards some other projects that we're working on. Notably, you mentioned in the Ed Committee minutes, things such as our movement towards integrated math. So that gives us a little bit of extra funding to address some of those professional development needs as we move into next year. Also, just of note, we are moving to a hybrid schedule next year. And so all of the curriculum projects are conducted in that light, meaning they're going to be looking at the structure of these projects as they relate to a different type of weekly schedule. In a prior conversation with President Owen, we talked a little bit about sort of what that process has looked like this year. And most of the professional development moving to the hybrid schedule we've been able to handle during the school year, which has been nice. So we opened the year working with teachers and doing a little bit of some things on differentiated instruction, and then surveying the staff to let them know what they feel they needed next. And then our role was to provide what they told us they needed throughout the rest of the year. So we had teachers go on school visits to other schools that had similar schedules to the one we're moving to, as well as our institute days really focused on inquiry and differentiation as we get ready for a once-a-week 90-minute period that's going to allow us to go much deeper into subject matter and also have an opportunity to have deep inquiry on those days.
Okay, any questions, comments? Thank you for the update. Jenny, would you take the roll?
Bessler?
Aye.
Coyle?
Aye.
Austriaco?
Aye.
Collins?
Aye.
Lee? Owen?
Aye. Good, Sean has a few things. Can I have a motion on item 13, textbooks and supplemental resources?
So moved.
Thank you. Second. Thank you.
Okay, this is our list of proposed textbook adoptions for next school year. This list is unchanged from the first reading, so if there are any further questions related to textbook adoption, I'd be happy to answer.
There's no comments. Jenny, would you take the roll?
Lee?
Aye.
Bessler? Austriaco?
Aye.
Coyle?
Aye.
Collins?
Aye.
Owen?
Aye. I have a motion on item 14, approval of student resource fees for 2018-19.
Sure. This is, these were adopted, I think we're heading into year 3 of our flat fee structure at this point. Our fees are unchanged. Just of note, just for clarification, this year's seniors will be the last group that actually purchased their Chromebook outright, who have a separate fee of $290, which is different than the $355. Subsequent classes, that has been built into a 4-year fee structure. So moving forward, the $355 is what each class will pay each year. That's the only really piece of, a little bit of a note to qualify why some things have been different over the years as far as certain groups paying a higher rate than others.
So does that include an upgrade, or I mean a replacement? So if a kid, so this is the last year that they have bought it outright. So if a sophomore needs a new Chromebook, what happens with that?
So depending on why they need the new Chromebook is probably the most important part of it. We do sell insurance to all the students. If it's something that's breakable, that it's broken or it's unusable, they can tap into the insurance that they have the option to purchase to replace that. But we do not do a replacement, sort of an ad hoc, hey, I just would like to have a new one.
So there's no, like, yeah, I suppose all the upgrades would be electronic. I mean, there's nothing.
Well, any upgrade, one of the reasons we went with the Chromebook is because it's so easily updatable, because it is basically it's a web browsing device. So any upgrades that Google does are automatic, as opposed to kind of your old style, having to have your computer re-imaged each year for new upgrades and things of that nature. So it's not a requirement on Chromebook.
So wider screens and all that stuff are not, I mean, I'll tell you why it's hit me is that I just think of what a cost it is for every time a kid wants a new phone.
Sure.
You know, so.
Hey, that's somebody else's problem, we're not.
No, I'm just saying, but, you know, Chromebooks, phones, but.
Well, yeah, in all honesty, we look to stay with what devices can we roll on that keep our kids current, but also don't create a gap in utilization between a group of seniors and a group of freshmen, for example.
And I just want to remind the board too, especially newer board members who are looking at this actually represents hundreds of dollars a year and probably close to $1,000 over 4 years savings over our previous model because of prior to using the e-books, it wasn't unusual. You probably remember this to have a $500 or $600 bill for the textbooks. And the whole e-book phenomenon is really what drove us to go in. We could have jumped into one of the years earlier, but that was the linchpin. So that's important that we remember. This is a rare thing where I think we've increased performance and lower fees. That just doesn't happen very much.
And made it all very good.
In addition to, I see other school students that I can talk with and we can go to the schools too. They're in the process of changing Chromebooks. So we have unchanged the fees for past 3 years. It's been continuous flat fee, right?
Yes.
And it's been 3 years or so. So how is the status of utilizing these Chromebooks compared to the regular textbook that they've been carrying or their bags and addition to, but also for low, moderate income family household who maybe, I don't know, some houses may not have a Wi-Fi at home and so on, the Chrome that they do it over study and so on.
Actually, surprisingly, we have an extremely high rate of Wi-Fi access among our families. Even with maybe some financial challenges, some of our families in the district, ironically, they do have Wi-Fi access. The other thing that we started maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we have Wi-Fi hotspots that students can take home with them. So if they do find themselves in a situation like that, we can lend them a hotspot, which gives them Wi-Fi access.
The only students in this district who are not connected are ones that would come in one or two cases, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong. They haven't, reach out and try to figure that out. They haven't communicated that with us, or they've chosen to, because we haven't solved for any student that isn't connected at home. Before we did the Wi-Fi hotspots, we actually used to set maps out in each of our communities where kids could go and get connectivity from them. 5, 6, 7 years ago, less connectivity. What's happened is the connectivity has become what color TV was when I was a young boy the other day. Some of you don't remember this, but there didn't used to be color TV. Shocker. And so I remember when, and at some point it became everybody's got color TV. That's what connectivity is. Okay, quick show of hands, audience. Who's old enough to remember black and white TV?
I have one.
Okay, okay. Thank you for not making me be alone on that. These other people don't know what I'm talking about.
Just another quick question. The loss of Chromebook status from the students.
Lost?
Yeah, lost. And they come say, hey, I lost my Chromebooks, I have to pay, buy it, and so on. How is the situation? Are we good on that?
Yeah, actually, very few students actually use a Chromebook.
They all have, they're registered, so.
They are registered.
Much less than the number of kids who came saying they lost their textbook.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Way fewer.
Yes.
So if you think about it, they have one Chromebook to manage. They used to have 6 or 7 textbooks to manage. Much higher textbook loss rate.
And again, it's another thing that you can actually take insurance out. So if you opt that you would like to take insurance, not unlike a cell phone, you can get insurance that says, you know, if I lose my cell phone, I can get it replaced. And some families do avail themselves because it's relatively cheap to protect themselves in those circumstances.
So Sean, so my youngest one graduated and we have a Chromebook at home. Is there a possibility of repurposing the Chromebooks for those who graduated and maybe if they want to donate it back?
So we've actually been talking about having them keep them.
Oh, okay.
Only because, kind of to Terry's earlier point, as we bring on newer devices, ones that are 4 years old, so what would we say is sort of a detriment to having an older one? Usually it's speed at this point.
Yeah.
So they're a little slower, so usually they're not quite conditioned that's worthwhile repairing. And then if not, we have to recycle them, which is a cost of the district. So we're letting them follow the individual, specifically we talked about free and reduced, which we fund those, and then allowing those students, we're having that conversation, allow those students to keep those. so they can basically take a device with them to their next.
The next thing is gonna happen with Chromebooks, and it's sort of in progress now. And we're in Google's initial pilot on this, is the new thing is going to be Android-enabled Chromebooks. So you're gonna have the ability to manipulate objects, to grab objects in a way that you can, for example, on the iPad. It's been a little slower progress with Google than we would have hoped, but when that happens, that's gonna be a real game changer. So that'll be the next sort of new generation of Chromebooks that happens. And it will just give them a little bit more computing power. But to that end, I mean, our Freedom of Use students will find those books anyway. We don't have anybody that's not connected now. There could be maybe some groups available that might benefit from having some donated. That'd be a question we could probably wrestle with a little bit. I don't know if, for example, if the public libraries have any Chromebooks available for students.
That's something I have.
Yeah, that might be a question.
Okay, if there's no other question on the student resource fees, Jenny, would you take the roll? Lee?
Aye.
Coyle?
Aye.
Bessler?
Aye.
Austriaco?
Aye.
Collins? Owen? Aye. Do I have a motion on item 15, intergovernmental agreement for shared vision and O&M services?
So moved.
Okay.
This is a yearly agreement that we sign. This is a shared service with District 62, 64, and ourselves. This is a very difficult position to hire for and get good people for, and so when you have one that we can actually fulfill a full-time plus position for, we partnered, and this is a little bit left over from when we had our consortium for special education, but this is one of those areas that it just makes good financial and personnel sense for us to share these particular individuals for these services.
All right. If there's no questions, Jenny, would you take the roll? Lee?
Aye.
Bessler? Aye. Coyle? Aye. Austriaco? Aye. Collins?
Aye.
Owen? Aye. Moving along to item 16, could I have a motion on item 16A, West Interactive Corp. School Messenger Communication Services?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Sean?
This is a 3-year contract with School Messenger. School Messenger, West Interactive is the parent company of School Messenger, which you're probably familiar with if you've had children in the district, because this is how we do our mass communications. So large scale email, phone, our blast phone messages, things like that. So we're recommending a 3-year. We will be looking at this though as we bring on Infinite Campus. Hopefully in the future, we'll have a conversation about that soon. They have some of these services as well.
But 3 years is a good, you think it's a good period of time to?
I do, from the standpoint that by the time we were to roll on Infinite Campus and then be ready to actually implement that aspect of the system, we'll be about 3 years out.
The cost really hasn't changed.
Cost has not really gone up much related to that service each year.
Okay. Okay, if there's no other questions, Jenny, would you take the roll? Austriaco?
Aye.
Collins?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Bessler?
Aye.
Coyle?
Aye.
Owen? Aye. I have a motion on item 16B. This is the asbestos abatement work. Thank you. Bless you. Secretary, thank you. Okay, Mary?
6 bids were received for asbestos abatement at the 3 schools for the cafeteria project. The low bidder, our recommendation is towards Nationwide Environmental at a contract amount of $160,055. That includes alternate 1, 2, and 3, which is some additional work for ceiling tile, for tile around some baseboards, and some installation around some beds.
So that's for each school?
That's the whole combined project for all 3 schools.
And this is a bid that was looked at
Correct,
pretty
so
carefully by Environmental Inc.
for TEM
TEM, yeah.
is the asbestos abatement management company that oversees the project.
Yeah, because this bid was
Pretty low.
Pretty low.
comparatively pretty low.
They work almost exclusively with the general contractor that was awarded the cafeteria bid. So they know it
Probably
very
very
well.
well too, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on this? All right, Jenny, take the roll. Bessler? Aye.
Coyle. Lee. Collins. Austriaco. Owen.
Aye. I have a motion on item 16C, Equip Business Process Solutions.
Second.
Thank you. Mary?
We are recommending an amendment to our 5-year contract with Epic Business Processing Solutions. This one-year extension will allow the technology department some time to determine what they want to do with copiers and printers. The cost will actually drop because the equipment was amortized over 5 years, and this is a 6th year, and we've not been having issues, so we're confident that we can keep the equipment for a 6th year.
And then in that
And then in that time frame, they'll have a recommendation for what they want to see with printers and copiers in the future.
Okay. All right. There's no questions or comments. Jamie, take the roll.
Coyle. Bessler. Austriaco. Collins. Lee. Owen.
Aye. I have a motion on items 16D and E. Take them together. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mary?
These are the bids for cafeteria tables. As indicated earlier, we are ordering 60-inch round tables, including several that are handicap accessible for wheelchairs, and then a number of high-top four-seater tables with attached stools. The 60-inch round table low bidder was Frank Cooney, and the four-top high-top square table low bidder was Lowry McDonald.
Not that this is imperative, but the sample ones you have like graphics on the.
So we're getting a gray top. We're going gray, black, and maple as our schemes because they're universal. Yes. We'll get crazy with paint if we get crazy, but not furniture.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Jenny, would you take the roll?
Coyle. Lee. Bessler. Austriaco. Collins. Owen.
I have a motion on item 16F. This is on the Johnson Controls chiller replacement.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Mary?
Okay, there are two components to our contract with Johnson Control. The first is the chiller replacement for $310,000. The second is the rental of a temporary chiller for $137,560. It should be noted that these contract amounts will be paid directly by our insurance company. The district's cost for these projects is $1,000 because that's our deductible.
Okay. Any questions? Okay.
So once we do the chiller replacement, this is going to be best for what?
So, normal age wear and tear on a chiller should get you between 20 and 30 years.
And this was the issue that had a personnel relation, or personnel
Yes.
issue related to it? Okay.
Yes. So there was.
And so we made it into the process where it couldn't be affected by a personnel
No,
issue then?
We have to replace the chiller.
No, but what I mean is, so it doesn't happen on the new chiller.
There is a human component to this business. We cannot eliminate that. Robots don't fix the chillers yet. If we can.
No, I'm not talking
There
about
are
fixing
additional
it. I'm
pieces
talking
of equipment that we have installed that would help minimize a temperature, a freeze point. So normally we have sensors that look for an area getting too hot because the generator produces heat. Now we've also, will be installing set little detections for when things get too cold.
Okay.
It'll trip the building automation system and provide an alert.
That's what I was looking for. So that's a new.
It's a sensor.
Sensor, okay. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. If there's no other questions, could I hear the roll, please?
Austriaco. Bessler. Collins. Coyle. Lee. Owen.
Aye. I have a motion on item 16G, the change order for the boiler.
Seven.
Okay, thank you. Mary?
Maine West has 8 what is called expansion joints on the piping for their boilers. These are like giant pipes. One of those expansion joints is failing under the increased pressure of the hot water boiler. So the plan was, instead of waiting for them all to fail, that we would, after the heating season, drain the system once, replace all of the 8 expansion joints with hard piping, and the cost for that was $37,400, but we have $20,966.03 left in our allowance for the project, so we're looking at a change order of $16,422.97. We believe this is cost effective to replace all 8 at once, because if one of the expansion joints was to fail next year, it's the equivalent of draining the entire hot water system in the basement. So it's not something that we want to do. This is a preventative measure. We could certainly have just replaced the one and been within our allowance amount and under contract, but we felt that replacing all 8 was the most proactive task course of action.
Questions. What's with this total original contract sum was $5.4 million?
That was the total contract sum of the boiler project. So when you look at this change order, represents 0.3 of 1% of the total project.
Overall, I think the district is doing a great job on all this procurement and contracts and all these activities and so on. But at the same time, and I'm sure you guys are very cautious with that too, but right now we are in stage of that $240.7 million renovation plan. It's been putting out the surface and doing community surveys and all the other things. Just want to be cautious. All the construction projects that we are spending a lot of money on to repair and fixing and so on, if this referendum or this thing happens and we are doing a big construction renovation for 21st century, I'm kind of like concerned that any previous construction projects that we spend a lot of money on, and hopefully within a year or two, that it's not going to waste it, because if we have to take it all demolished down.
These boilers were original.
I'm not talking about the boilers, but I'm talking about, that's what I'll say, all the contracts and all the projects.
This is a question that has come up a couple of times, like on cafeteria and things like that, and the board had asked before, making sure that whatever's done, if there is a project moving forward, that it's part of it. We're not gonna waste money that we spent in the past.
We'll give you 2 perfect examples. One, the cafeteria addition at Main South. That addition was part of the larger facility master plan. On schedule for this summer was the replacement of the front glass at Main South. But because the facility master plan talked about some changes to their main entrance, we chose to postpone that project, because that would be an instance where we would have just replaced the windows and now we would be altering them. So that is the types of decisions that we're making to ensure that nothing we do does not, everything that we're doing now will fit in with the master plan.
Well, that's why previously I said that the district's doing a fine job on that, but particularly I think we want to be not overlooked it, and we need to be extra cautious related to any projects that we are spending money on repair, buying.
And honestly, I've never known Mary to be anything but extra cautious in these situations. Extra.
And very cognizant of that lens.
So it's a good point, but I think really it's something she's thinking about. We're all thinking about it too. So. Okay, anything else? Okay, could you take the roll on the change order for the board?
Lee?
Aye.
Boyle?
Aye.
Collins?
Aye.
Kessler?
Aye.
Austriaco?
Okay, all right, sorry. Can I have a motion on item 17? This is approval of revised school calendar for 17-18. Thank you. Thank you. Greg, can you just?
Yeah, this is standard operating procedure. At the end of the year, we have to submit a final calendar that takes into account any revisions due to emergency school closings. So but we had one snow day this year. And so you can see that we had a total of 178 student attendance days. We normally have 179. That's still well above the state minimum of 174.
Questions? Jenny? Coyle? Aye. Bessler? Aye. Lee? Collins? Austriaco? Owen? Aye. I have a motion on item 18, facilities waiver, Right Question Institute. Thank you. Sean?
Okay, this is the third year we're bringing the waiver to you. We partner each year with the Right Question Institute to bring their Midwest Summit and host it in the district. They request each year a fee waiver for the facility, and then in turn give us 25 free seats for professional development. So I alluded to earlier, part of our hybrid professional development. This is a particularly good professional development related to deep inquiry. They've basically done a lot of scientific research around questioning, how to ask questions, and how to use questioning as a trigger to deeper learning. And so we partner with them, and then this is the traditional yearly request to continue that relationship.
And they say if there's more than 25 that want to go, they'll let them attend.
Yeah,
as
we
well.
usually work something out. We've been roughly right around 25. We haven't exceeded that yet, but they're always willing to give more seats if that's the case.
It's a great institute, and the work is very evidence-based. It's very, and it can be applied to all different disciplines. It's very
It's helped us
impactful.
make a pivot for a lot of teachers away from sort of the transmission to inquiry, and it puts us sort of at the center of this summit, so it's on our facility, and it's been a good partnership.
Bessler? Coyle? Collins? Austriaco? Lee? Owen?
Aye. Okay, item 19, calendar items. Are there any changes to the calendar? We have,
You know, the only is the standing education, that's still listed at 4. We've moved it back to 6 to accommodate board members who are.
and that's on the, okay, that's standing.
Standing should be changed to 6.
Okay, so that's 6 o'clock for the education meeting. Okay, anything else? Are there any other public comments? Okay, could I have a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of review of closed session minutes and appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees?
Austriaco? Bessler? Collins? Coyle? Lee? Owen?
Aye.